5 things to eliminate from your home immediately. What if I told you that your home, the very place you're supposed to feel safe, calm, and inspired, is silently holding you back? Every object, every piece of clutter, every memory collecting dust, it all carries energy. And some of it's not just unnecessary, it's toxic. Today, we are not just cleaning house. We are cleansing your life. You are about to discover the 5 things you must eliminate from your home immediately. Because peace doesn't come from adding more. It comes from letting go of what no longer serves you. Let's begin. The energy of your environment. Take a moment and look around you. Not with your eyes, but with your awareness. Sense the space you call home. Think about the corners you rarely visit, the rooms you rush through without thought, the shelves filled with things you haven't touched in years. Now ask yourself what energy lives there, because whether you realize it or not, your home is not just a place, it's a mirror. Every room reflects your mind. Every object carries a story. Every pile, every stack, every drawer tells the truth of where you've been, who you've been, and what you still haven't let go of. Your home is not separate from you, it is an extension of your inner life. And what you tolerate in your physical space, you often tolerate in your emotional space too. We tend to think that discomfort, stress, or the feeling of being stuck comes from the outside world, from work, from relationships, from society. But sometimes, the greatest weight on our shoulders is the one we unknowingly allow to live inside our homes. The silent clutter, the forgotten chaos, the energy of things left unresolved. Every time you walk into a room and feel your shoulders tense, that's not random. That's energy. That's history whispering back to you, reminding you of everything you've avoided. You don't need to be a minimalist to crave simplicity. You don't need to live in an empty house to feel free. But you do need to be honest about the things in your space that are stealing your light. Because let's be clear, clutter isn't just physical. It's emotional. Every item you keep carries a frequency. Some things lift you. Some things anchor you. And some things silently drain you, without you even noticing. Think about how different you feel when you walk into a freshly cleaned room. The calm, the clarity, the breath you didn't realize you were holding. Now contrast that with a space that overwhelms you the second you enter it. One triggers peace. The other feeds anxiety. That's not just about cleanliness, it's about alignment. One space supports the life you want. The other keeps you chained to a life you've outgrown. Your environment shapes your energy. It influences your decisions, your habits, your sleep, your creativity, your focus, and even your self-worth. When you're surrounded by chaos, you begin to believe that chaos is normal. You settle for noise. You settle for distraction. You settle for less. But you weren't meant to live buried beneath piles of just in case, and maybe someday. You weren't meant to live in rooms that feel like museums of a past you've already healed from. You were meant to thrive in a space that breathes with you, moves with you, grows with you. A space that reflects who you are becoming, not just who you've been. And that begins by becoming intentional, by choosing what stays and what must go. It begins with a shift in awareness, because when you finally start looking at your space, not as a storage unit, but as sacred ground something changes. You stop asking, "Do I have room for this?" and start asking, "Does this deserve room in my life?" That one question alone can open doors to healing you didn't even know you needed. The truth is, your home is either healing you or hurting you. It's either building your energy or draining it. And if your space feels heavy, if your life feels stalled, if your spirit feels dim, it might be time to ask, what am I allowing into my space that no longer serves my soul? Because peace isn't something you find. It's something you make room for. And the room you create begins right where you are. In the drawers you haven't opened, the closets you haven't cleared, the stories you've stored on shelves, and the energy you've allowed to linger long after its time. This is where the shift begins, not with buying more, but with releasing what's holding you back. Your environment is talking to you. It always has been. Maybe now, for the first time, you're finally ready to listen. Clutter that nitrogen monoxide longer serves the others a quiet weight that builds over time. It doesn't shout. It doesn't crash, it lingers. It hides in the corners, in the closets, under beds, behind doors, and you carry it every day without even realizing it. It's the weight of things you no longer need, but still choose to keep. It's the clutter that no longer serves you. We all have it. Drawers that won't close. Clothes we haven't worn in years. Boxes from another chapter of life we're too afraid to unpack and too hesitant to throw away. The objects themselves aren't evil. They're just objects. But what they represent, that's where the power lies. Because clutter isn't just about space. Clutter is about emotional residue. It's about the decisions you haven't made, the emotions you haven't faced, the identities you haven't outgrown. Look at the clutter in your home and ask yourself, why is it still here? That pile of old bills on the counter, is that a sign of how overwhelmed you've been feeling? That shirt hanging in your closet with the tags still on, is that a symbol of who you thought you needed to be? That drawer full of tangled cords and dead batteries, is it really about the items? Or is it about the way life has felt out of control? You see, every time you walk past something you don't use, don't need, or don't love, your mind takes note. Even if you think you've tuned it out, your subconscious hasn't. That clutter speaks. It whispers stories of delay, procrastination, fear, guilt, and indecision, and over time, those whispers become beliefs. You begin to believe that this mess is just part of life, that this heaviness is normal, that you're too busy, too tired, or too far gone to change. But you're not. The truth is, you've just been distracted by noise, by things that have lost their purpose, but continue to take up space. And every inch of clutter in your home is space that could be holding something better. Clarity, creativity, calm. It's not just about having a clean room, it's about having a clear mind. And that starts with choosing what stays and what goes. You don't have to declutter your whole house overnight. Start small. Start with the dead zones, the places you avoid. That one drawer you haven't opened in months. That shelf in the garage you've been meaning to get to. Don't make it about perfection. Make it about power. Every object you release is a decision. A declaration that you are no longer available for what drains you. You are no longer willing to carry the weight of just in case or I might need it someday. Because let's be honest, how many of those just in case items have ever saved you? How many of those maybe I'll use this items have actually brought joy or value to your life? You're not holding onto these things because you love them. You're holding onto them because of fear. Fear of needing. Fear of regret. Fear of loss. But those fears keep you stuck in the past, and your future doesn't live there. There's a freedom that comes with letting go, a lightness, a clarity. Suddenly, you can think again. You can breathe. You can see your life not as a mess to manage, but as a space to create. And what you create is entirely up to you. Clutter thrives in silence. It survives when we don't question it. But once you open your eyes and really look, once you ask why you're holding onto something that no longer serves your purpose, it loses its power. You take your space back. You take your life back. Because you are not the things you own. You are not defined by the piles, the stuff, the mess. You are defined by what you choose to carry and, more importantly, by what you choose to let go of. Objects tied to painful memorism of the most powerful items in our homes aren't the most expensive. They aren't flashy, valuable, or even beautiful. In fact, sometimes they're hidden in boxes, stored in closets, or collecting dust on shelves. What makes them powerful isn't what they are, it's what they represent. These are the objects, tied to painful memories, the things that carry not just weight but grief, heartbreak, and stories we've never fully healed from. Maybe it's a photo of someone who hurt you, but you keep it because it reminds you of better times. Maybe it's a gift from someone who's no longer in your life, a gift you didn't ask for, but can't seem to let go of. Maybe it's an old piece of clothing that belonged to a loved one who passed, and you feel that if you give it away, you're giving them away too. These objects often sit quietly, but their emotional volume is loud. Every time you see them, something inside of you contracts. A memory surfaces, a wound reopens. You tell yourself it's harmless, but it's not. Keeping these items is like keeping a wound from healing because you're afraid of forgetting how it felt. You replay the heartbreak. You relive the pain, not consciously, but emotionally, energetically. These items hold you in a place you no longer belong, and they whisper lies that say you can't move on. Lies that say holding on equals honoring the past. Lies that say letting go means betrayal. But here's the truth. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean erasing someone from your story. It means choosing peace over pain. It means choosing life over lingering in loss. There is no shame in grieving. Grief is sacred. It's human. But there comes a time when grief turns into a shadow that follows you everywhere. And sometimes, the shadow lives in the things you've kept long after their purpose has passed. That sweater from your ex. The card from a birthday that turned into a goodbye. The journal from a season of depression. You don't have to keep reliving that version of your life. You are allowed to move forward without carrying everything with you. Some people think strength is holding on, but often true strength is letting go gently, lovingly, courageously. It's looking at something and saying, thank you for what you were. but I don't need to carry you anymore. That is strength. That is healing. We are emotional creatures, and our attachment to things is rarely about the thing itself. It's about identity, memory, longing, love. But what would it look like to believe that love doesn't live in objects, that love lives in you? The memories are not in the photograph. They are in your heart. The connection is not in the shirtits. In the moments you carry in your spirit, you are not dishonoring the past by freeing your present. You are honoring your life by making space to fully live in it. Letting go of items tied to painful memories isn't about erasing the past. It's about rewriting your relationship with it. It's about deciding what you want your energy to feel. Like when you walk into a room, do you want to feel the sting of a broken chapter or the peace of a new one beginning? Start gently. You don't need to throw it all away at once. You can release with reverence. You can create rituals of goodbye, write a letter, take a picture, say a prayer. You're not discarding meaning. You're creating space for new meaning to enter. Because life is not meant to be a museum of pain. It is meant to be a living, breathing space of growth, hope, and freedom. And sometimes, freedom starts with saying goodbye to something that once meant everything, but no longer defines you. Outdated versions of the other are things in your home right now that don't just take up space, they hold onto a version of you that no longer exists, and yet you still keep them. Maybe it's that jacket that no longer fits, but once made you feel important. Maybe it's the paint supplies from a hobby you haven't touched in years, but feel guilty for abandoning. Maybe it's the stacks of books you bought during a season where you were trying to fix yourself, or become someone else entirely. At first glance, these things don't seem harmful, but when you look closely, they tell a story, and that story is often one of permission you haven't given yourself. Permission to change, permission to evolve, permission to become someone new, without needing to drag every old version of yourself along for the ride. Because here's the truth most people never say out loud: outgrowing something doesn't mean you failed it. Letting go of who you were doesn't mean that person was wrong or broken or less than. It just means you've grown. It means the soil that once nurtured you now feels tight, cramped, and yet so many of us stay rooted in spaces we've outgrown, surrounded by objects that quietly whisper, "You used to be this," and we start to believe we're not allowed to be anything else. But you are. You are allowed to evolve. In fact, you're meant to. Every human being is supposed to change, to shift, to wake up one day and realize that the life, the habits, the clothes, the patterns that once fit like a second skin no longer reflect who you are inside. And yet we keep things out of nostalgia, out of guilt, out of a belief that we owe our past selves some kind of loyalty. But what we're really doing is staying small, staying stuck, staying surrounded by proof of who we used to be instead of creating space for who we're becoming. You can't grow when you're buried under old identities. You can't soar when you keep tying yourself to old dreams you've outlived. You can't breathe when your space is filled with shoulds, maybes, and memories that no longer inspire you. They haunt you. Look around your home. What are you holding onto that represents a version of you who no longer feels true? The closet filled with clothes that belonged to a different body, a different lifestyle, a different shoe. The notebooks and plans from a career you no longer desire, but are afraid to release because it feels like giving up. The dusty equipment from a season you've outgrown, but keep because part of you is afraid to admit that your desires have changed. These things don't just sit there, they speak, and their message is subtle but damaging. Stay the same. Don't change too much. Remember who you were. But you weren't born to live the same story forever. You were born to rise, to shed, to evolve. And sometimes that means clearing physical proof that no longer aligns with your internal truth. You don't need to feel ashamed for evolving. You don't need to explain your growth. You don't need to stay tied to hobbies, identities, or aesthetics that no longer light your soul on fire. The more you allow yourself to release the outdated versions of you, the more energy you will have to embody the next version stronger, wiser, bolder, more honest. You owe it to yourself to walk into your home and feel seen, not by who you used to be, but by who you are now. And when your environment reflects your present truth, not your past identities, you will stop feeling the invisible tension that comes from being pulled into directions. Who you were and who you're becoming. You are not the dreams you outgrew. You are not the clothes that no longer fit. You are not the version of yourself that lived in a different season of your life. You are here. You are changing. And it's okay to let go of the things that no longer feel like home even if they once did. Digital clutter that steals your focus. Not all clutter is physical. In fact, some of the most overwhelming clutter doesn't live on your shelves or in your closets. It lives in your phone, your inbox, your laptop. It's the endless stream of notifications, the flood of emails you keep saying you'll get to, the apps you downloaded 2 years ago and never opened again, the thousands of photos you'll never look at but can't bring yourself to delete. It's the tabs you leave open, the messages left unread, the files scattered across your desktop like digital debris. You don't see it the same way you see a messy room, but you feel it, and it's exhausting. This is digital clutter. And make no mistake, it steals more than just space. It steals your clarity. It hijacks your focus. It chips away at your peace of mind, one little distraction at a time. Most people think digital overload is normal. We tell ourselves it's just part of modern life. But the truth is, living in a constant state of digital noise is like trying to think clearly while standing in the middle of a crowded room where everyone is yelling your name. You can't breathe. You can't think. You can't be. The world has wired us for distraction. Every beep, every ping, every flash on the screen is a subtle demand for your attention, and attention is your most valuable currency. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And if your attention is scattered across dozens of pointless notifications, half-read articles, and digital junk you've long since stopped using, then your energy is scattered too. Your thoughts feel foggy, your productivity drops, your creativity dims, and without realizing it, you start to feel anxious, behind, and disconnected from your own life. And here's the dangerous part: unlike physical clutter, digital clutter hides in plain sight. You don't trip over it. You don't see the mess pile up on your floor. It quietly builds in the background, silently overwhelming your mind. You check your phone in the morning, and before you've even had a moment to greet the day, you're already reacting to the world, already processing messages, headlines, news feeds, updates, already drained before you've even taken your first conscious breath. This isn't just a bad habit. It's a slow leak of your power, and it's costing you more than you realize. But the good news, you have control. You can reclaim your attention. You can reclaim your energy. And it starts by simplifying your digital space on purpose. Begin with your phone. Ask yourself, which apps truly serve your well-being, your growth, your peace? Which ones do you open mindlessly, chasing dopamine, avoiding discomfort? Numbing the present moment, start deleting. Be ruthless. You don't need 10 apps to check the weather or for different photo editors, or 100 unread emails from stores you never shop at. Each one is noise. Each one is weight. Let them go. Then look at your notifications. Do you really need to be alerted every time someone likes a photo, tags a meme, or sends a marketing blast? Every notification is a tap on your mental shoulder. Look here. Think about this. Turn them off. Set boundaries. Make your digital world reflect your values, not your addictions. Next. Clear the digital graveyard. Old files, documents, screenshots, messages that no longer serve any purpose. Organize what matters. Archive what you need. Delete what you don't. Your digital life should be a tool, not a trap. When you create space in your digital environment, your mind follows. You begin to breathe deeper, think clearer, feel calmer. You begin to respond to life instead of react to it. Because when your devices no longer own your attention, you do. And that's when your life begins to change. Digital clutter isn't harmless. It's heavy. And every bit you release is a step toward lightness, a step toward stillness, a step toward a life that's no longer overstimulated, but finally aligned. Gifts you keep out of gilfers a certain kind of weight that doesn't look heavy, but it is. You can't always see it. It doesn't always pile up like clutter. But you feel it every time you walk past a shelf or open a drawer and see something you don't love, don't need, and didn't choose but still feel obligated to keep. These are the gifts you hold onto out of guilt, the items given to you with good intentions, maybe even love, but that no longer have a place in your life except as reminders of your discomfort. Your pressure to please, and your silent permission to put other people's feelings above your own peace. Maybe it's the decorative plate your in-laws gave you that you've never used, but can't bear to throw away. Maybe it's the sweater your aunt gave you 5 birthdays ago that you've never worn, but you keep in your closet just in case she visits. Maybe it's the handmade trinket, the outdated furniture, the kitchen gadget you never asked for, but there it sits, because letting go feels like betrayal. It feels like ingratitude, so you keep it, and every time you see it, it reminds you that a part of your home isn't truly yours. It's a museum of other people's expectations. We've been taught that receiving a gift means we must keep it forever, that discarding it is rude, disrespectful, even hurtful. But here's a truth that's hard to say out loud. A gift is not a contract. It is not a lifelong obligation. A gift is meant to bring joy, to serve a purpose, to reflect love. If it does none of those things, then its purpose is complete. Keeping it out of guilt doesn't preserve the relationship, it diminishes your freedom. You are not a bad person for letting go of a gift you didn't want or no longer use. You are not ungrateful for choosing your peace over someone else's approval. You are not selfish for wanting a home that reflects you, your style, your energy, your truth. In fact, honoring your space is one of the deepest forms of self-respect. Because your home should not be a storage unit for obligation. It should be a sanctuary for alignment. Let's go deeper, because the guilt isn't really about the object. It's about what we fear it means. We're afraid that letting go of the gift means letting go of the person who gave it. That if they find out we've donated it or thrown it away, they'll feel rejected, that they'll take it personally. But here's the reality. True connection isn't built on stuff. It's built on presence, honesty, shared values. And if someone's love for you hinges on whether or not you kept a candle holder or a pair of oven mitts, then it's not really love, it's performance. You are allowed to draw boundaries, even when it comes to the things people gave you in kindness, especially when those things come at the expense of your space and energy. Keeping something just to avoid an uncomfortable conversation or an imaginary scenario where someone gets offended, that's not protection. That's self-betrayal. Start by asking yourself one honest question. If I had bought this for myself, would I have chosen it? If the answer is no, and if it brings no joy, no meaning, and no use, then it doesn't deserve a permanent home in your space. You can be grateful for the gesture and still release the gift. You can appreciate the thought and still donate the item. Gratitude and release can exist in the same breath. You are allowed to make space for a life that feels like yours, not a collection of social obligations, not a museum of guilt, but a reflection of your soul, a reflection of who you are not, who others want you to be. And every time you release a gift you kept out of guilt, you're not losing love. You're reclaiming room for joy, for clarity, and for the honest expression of your true self. The space you create when you begin to let go of the things that no longer serve you. When you release the clutter, the painful reminders, the outdated versions of yourself, the digital noise, and the gifts kept out of guilt, something powerful happens. You begin to create space, but not just physical space, not just an empty drawer or a clean room. You create energetic space, emotional space, creative space, spiritual space, and in that space, something sacred begins to grow. That space is possibility. Most people walk through their lives feeling weighed down. They can't quite explain it. They just feel tired, unmotivated, disconnected, like something is always pressing against them, holding them back, draining their spark. They think they need more time, more discipline, more motivation. But what they really need is less noise, less weight, less of what doesn't belong to them anymore. We spend so much time trying to fix the symptoms when often the root cause is right in front of us, or rather, all around us. The environment you live in is either feeding your vision or slowly starving it. It's either opening you up or shutting you down. And the difference isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. It's the tension in your shoulders you didn't realize you were holding. It's the irritation you feel every time you pass that pile you've been avoiding. It's the moment you try to focus, but your mind feels scattered because the energy around you is still cluttered, even if the room looks clean on the surface. But when you begin to clear with intention, something deep inside of you shifts. When you remove what doesn't belong, what does belong begins to rise. That's the magic of space. It's not just an absence, it's an invitation. When you clear what no longer serves you, you create room for what does. Room for peace. Room for breath. Room for clarity. Room for the next version of you to take root and unfold in the present moment, not stuck in the shadows of yesterday's noise. And this isn't just about creating a pretty home or organizing your belongings. This is about claiming authority over your life. Every item you release is a decision that says, I choose clarity over chaos. One choose healing over holding on. I choose the life I'm building over the one I've already lived. You are not powerless. You are not stuck. You are just surrounded by things that reflect a past you're no longer aligned with. But the moment you begin to shift what's around you, you shift what's within you. You start to notice your thoughts becoming quieter, your mornings becoming calmer, your creativity beginning to return not because you forced it, but because you made space for it. Your attention is no longer being stolen by things that don't matter. Your energy is no longer being consumed by things you no longer need. You begin to feel different in your own skin, not because your life changed overnight, but because you changed the atmosphere you live in. And that atmosphere begins to support your growth. Instead of stifling it, you are allowed to design a space that mirrors your values, your purpose, your present identity. You are allowed to look around and feel proud not because it's perfect, but because it's aligned. You don't need more square footage. You don't need luxury furniture or designer labels. What you need is ownership. Ownership of your energy. Ownership of your choices. Ownership of the message your home is sending you every single day. Because your home is not just where you live. It's where you return to yourself. It's where your soul breathes, your dreams expand, your healing happens. And when your space becomes intentional, it stops being a burden and starts becoming a sanctuary. A place where you're not surviving anymore. A place where you're safe to grow, to rest, to rise. You have now walked through the hidden corners of your home and perhaps the hidden corners of your own life. You've seen how the weight you carry isn't just emotional. It's physical. It's around you. It surrounds you daily in the form of clutter, reminders of pain, outdated dreams, digital distractions, and items you've kept not because they serve you, but because you were taught to feel guilty for letting them go. But you are no longer that person who needs to explain their need for peace. You no longer have to apologize for evolving, for wanting clarity, for choosing healing over holding on. This is more than a list of things to throw away. This is a declaration of who you're becoming. The space you live in is a mirror of your choices, your emotions, your values, and your boundaries. And when you choose to eliminate what no longer aligns with your truth, you reclaim your identity, your energy, and your authority. This is your moment to draw a line between who you've been and who you're ready to become. And that line starts at your front door. It starts in the drawer you avoid. It starts with the decision to no longer live surrounded by proof of your past, but to live in the presence of your power. You are not meant to carry what exhausts you. You are meant to carry what frees you. So clear the space. Clear it with boldness, with honesty, and with the knowing that you are worthy of a home that reflects peace, not pressure, purpose, not the past. From this moment forward, let your space breathe with intention. Let your home rise to meet the strength of your becoming. Because when you create a space that honors who you are now, not who you were, your entire life begins to transform. And that is where freedom lives.